Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Health Without the System. I'm Dr. Tim Scott.
And I'm Mia Scott, guys. Welcome back for our first-time listeners. Welcome for the first time, and buckle up. We got another crazy episode today. Interesting topic here. We are diving into the wacky world of parasites.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. I like to talk about toxins. I like to talk about low-level infections, the mycotoxin, parasites, all kinds of fun stuff. Let's jump in.
Yeah, and this is a topic that I feel like a ton of actually my friends, not even necessarily my patients, but my friends, because they know that every single season our family goes through just a mild parasite cleanse here with the season change, and I get this all the time. What do you do? Why do you do this? Are you serious? We have parasites in us, and we're going to dive into not only yes we do, but what on earth are they doing in the body? It's one of the most hidden infections that a lot of patients or people might not know that they have in walking among us every single day.
Yeah, I agree. And it really doesn't come up in traditional Western medicine or conventional medicine a lot. It's just not something we're taught throughout medical school, throughout residency. We don't really address it. I mean, maybe
unless it's a physical
right, like you
eyeball,
see it,
yeah.
or you're at a specialized infectious disease. But the thing is, most people are walking around with parasites. Everyone's walking around with parasites.
It just depends if they're a problem.
Exactly. It depends if they're a problem or not. At any given time, people should be aware you have. We've already said you have more bacterial DNA in your body than you have human DNA. You also have viral DNA, and you also have parasites, all kinds of different things. It's just living in you. It's part of you.
Yep. So, all right. So let's dive in. Now, when most people hear the word parasite, they imagine something like super extreme, traveling to a third world country, drinking contaminated water, having these massive 30-foot long tapeworms that get taken out of them. But reality is that parasites are just far more common than people think and actually decently hard to diagnose, find, treat. And we're going to dive into what that looks like.
I agree. And parasites can impact quite a different things when it comes to your health: digestion, immune system, nutrient absorption, mental health, skin, really hormones, energy levels, you name it. Parasites can be involved in it. And it's kind of just important to be able to recognize this at a low level. We'll say this again throughout the episode. This isn't really about raising an alarm and like getting off this episode and, oh my God, I got parasites. I need to go cleanse and do all this. It's just kind of being aware, and we'll talk about why.
Yeah, you don't have to live in fear. But today we're going to walk through what parasites are. How the heck do we get these little boogers? How are they becoming more common? How they affect adults versus children? Why are they missed, especially in conventional medicine? And why functional medicine and Chinese medicine have a different perspective on things? And how we can remove them. How do we get rid of them and clean our belly up?
Yep. And we'll even mention some labs that may point us towards them.
Yep. There we go.
First off, what is a parasite?
Well, a parasite is simply just an organism that lives either on or inside another organism and survives by taking nutrient from the host. So I typically consider these blood suckers. They basically live in or on somebody and can take up their nutrients. And they typically live in the GI tract, but they also can affect almost every single organ, which means outside of the GI tract. Things like liver, gallbladder, lungs, bloodstream, muscle, and the brain. So some scary stuff. Once again, not to fearmonger. Majority of the ones that we're going to be talking about affect gut health and how that can interact with the body's systems, but just know that they can kind of make themselves around your body.
Agreed. So there's three major categories of human parasites that we're going to talk about today. You have your protozoa, your helminths, and your ectoparasites.
Yep.
So your protozoa, those are kind of like your basic guys, your single cell organisms. They really include the Giardia, the entamoeba, and cryptosporidium are ones that are probably most common or people have heard of the most. They're microscopic, but they can cause some major symptoms, thinking diarrhea, IBS kind of symptoms like cramping, diarrhea, bloating, even constipation, fatigue, brain fog. It's all there. They often spread through contaminated water, food, or poor sanitation. So these are the ones where people are drinking from the mountain stream thinking you're getting the freshest water and you're getting a little bit of Giardia. So that's always fun.
Yep.
The second category is your helminths, which are essentially worms. And these are multicellular parasites, so a little bit more complex. And they're usually visible to the naked eye once they become mature.
Yeah.
So the examples are well known to most people when you start talking about roundworms, tapeworms, flukes, hookworms, pinworms, and whipworms. That's all in that category of helminths. And the third major category is ectoparasites, and those live outside of the body. Those helminths that I mentioned the worms, they live inside the body and they can live for years. They can lead to things like nutrient depletions, anemia, digestive issues, immune dysfunction. They can wreak havoc and you don't even know they're there. The ectoparasites live on the outside of the body and generally they're there. Ticks, lice, fleas, mites, scabies,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. While they live on the skin, they can still cause major problems because they feed on blood or skin. We know skin is sort of a selectively permeable membrane. Things can still get through it, but they can also transmit infections. Think Lyme disease, typhus. What else? I don't know.
Yeah, those are the main ones that we'll get into, the inner ones, the bigger ones, and then the outside ones. So
the inner, the bigger, the outside. Okay,
it's kind of how we break it down.
We can go with that.
So let's talk about why parasites are a little bit more common than we think. And if you're in the Western medicine world, this will be like, what on God's green earth are you talking about? But if you dive into the functional medicine and the Chinese medicine world, you'll know like parasites, duh, like it's just kind of common sense now. In functional medicine doctors, specifically Dr. Charlene Fagenholtz, shout out to Charlie. Love his work. He's more of Chinese medicine. He's taught me a lot in the Chinese medicine world and kind of bringing in that with the Western medicine world. Dr. Todd Watts is another one. Dr. Jay Davison. They talk a lot about about parasites because they see this not only frequently in their practice, but how this can be such a multi-system impact with their patients that are just coming from Western medicine and not getting well.
I think
super sick and unexplained.
I think they talk about it too because it's just becoming more common.
It is,
in the world today.
Yep. Especially, and we'll get into lab levels, but especially when you have patients who are so fatigued, GI issues, ferritin in the gutter where you can't explain, which like I said, we're going to get into lab work, but those are the things that can absolutely help because these parasites could just be like sucking off your nutrients. So for anybody who wants to follow Dr. Charlie Fagenholtz, he is on Instagram. Like I said, I've been following him for probably a decade now. He has amazing work out there and he goes really, deep down into the science as well.
Cool. So why is it more prevalent? Why are we seeing it more? Why is it being talked about more? And it's just the world we live in. So first off, food is global. Food used to be local, but now food gets transported all around the world, definitely all around the United States, neighboring countries. A lot of our avocados come from Mexico, fruits come from Mexico. We all are aware of how much food can come from, other countries. So that food shipped around the world, contamination can occur. Produce, meat, seafood, imported foods, fruits and vegetables. That's a very common way that parasites can spread. Another one is
even organic.
Yes,
by the way.
Even organic. Absolutely. Another one is undercooked foods. So, I think as food becomes more of a experience for some people, we eat more undercooked and raw foods. I mean,
Sushi.
Myself included. Yeah.
Sushi. If here's the thing, and I'm going to just throw this out here. I should have started with this. If you eat sushi, eat meat at all, eat any fish, touched dirt, have dogs, animals, cats, kids, you likely have parasites because this is where all of those germs and bacteria and little boogers can get in. So if you didn't cross off one of those things at your list, you might be safe. If not, I should probably throw in drinking city water too in there. But anyway, so that's where it comes from. The main ones, like Tim said, the more of the sushi, pork, wild game, like more raw fish, those things.
And interestingly, from a more historical perspective, this is part of why other traditional cultures used strong spices and herbs when they cooked, because it actually could neutralize different bacteria, parasites, and viruses in the GI system. I think we have a little section later on it, but if you want to talk for just a moment, we can talk about some of the spices that can be used for gut health.
And this goes into more, like I said, the Chinese more herbal medicine. And remember, you've probably heard us say this often, is food is medicine. And honestly, back in the olden days, they knew what they were doing. So things like garlic, that is an antimicrobial, antiparasitic, naturally. It has been used for centuries in traditional medicine to help suppress intestinal parasites and pathogens and just basically help kill them.
Yeah. So when I was just coming off of a PPI a few months ago, I had built a really big gut regimen. My goal was anyone who's on a PPI most likely has SIBO, right?
Which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Yeah. As
overpopulation of some of these bad microbes.
Exactly. You decrease the stomach acidity, and these microbes that are supposed to live down in the colon and the distal parts of your intestinal system make their way up into the small intestine. So first, what you have to do is you kind of have to eradicate these bad bacteria. So I was taking allicin drops, which is garlic contains allicin in it. And oh my God, was it strong. I mean, it was like pure freaking garlic oil on my tongue. So I was doing that twice a day. You know what? I think I'm going to do another round of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Another one is clove that contains, I always say this wrong, eugenol. And it has a strong antimicrobial as well. Traditionally, it's used to help target the eggs in larvae. So then, of course, they can't, hatch and redo.
So yeah, eugenol is actually a very strong polyphenol with very good, it's a broad spectrum. It's got antimicrobial and some good anti-parasitic and antiviral activity. That's a very good, like ground clove mixed with a little bit of cinnamon, turmeric, garlic, very good gut health.
We put clove in our natural cough medicine for helping with that as well. Antiviral, bacterial, all the things. Black walnut, that's one that we use for our mild cleanses for our kiddos. They actually have no problems having a little tincture and shooting it back, but that is used very commonly in herbal parasite formulas. Once again, these are, is it juglone and tannins that you pronounce it?
Yeah.
These are compounds that help just create an environment that some of these parasites just cannot survive and help them, die off. Wormwood is another very common one that is a very old anti-parasitic herb that has been
do we do
used
that
for
in our
forever.
cleanse sometimes?
Yeah,
I feel like
it's in some of the blends that we do. Yep.
Yeah.
It honestly depends, and we'll get into some of the treatments, but it really just depends on how parasitic toxic you are, so to speak. If someone is super symptomatic, we're going to get into what that might look like for treatment. But for us, when we really support our gut, we just do this every, seasonal change, pair it with the moon, which we'll talk about. And those are, we just do mild cleanses. Some people, you need to throw in the entire kitchen sink to get rid of some of these parasites.
Sure.
Pumpkin seeds that can paralyze certain intestinal worms, making it, of course, easier for your body to notice that something is dead and get rid of it. Papaya seeds,
I love those.
Amazing for your gut digestion, digestive support, and then, of course, it's the antimicrobial to help kill off some of these parasites.
You finally warmed up to papaya a little bit.
I think I was just eating not good papaya. It's so much better in other countries. Now I probably got parasites, but it's definitely better in other countries. Oregano and thyme, another super good medicinal one. Herbs that contain like thymol, potent antimicrobial compounds that help suppress the parasites with, bacterial, fungus, like those are such broad spectrum. Whenever my kiddos get sick, I have an oregano tincture as well. Very potent, just like the garlic, like hold on to your britches when you drink that one, but it works very well.
Turmeric is also good antimicrobial in the gut. And interestingly enough, so people are always so focused on getting the different blends like, oh, is it black pepper? Is it this form micronized to absorb all the turmeric? But actually, if you are trying to cleanse your gut or antimicrobial, you actually don't want to absorb the turmeric. You want it to make it through the GI tract. So that would be an instance in where it kind of depends on what your goals are. But that's a great one too. Often underestimated. Okay, so we talked about undercooked foods, and then that led us to this discussion of how cultures use spices to sort of counteract microbes and parasites that were in it. Another reason we're seeing growth in today's world, well, pets and animals, that's not really different from olden days, but that is where a lot of parasite activity comes from.
Yeah, and then more travel, more access to travel outside of the United States, contaminated water, like Tim said, the Giardia, that is a really, really common one to have. That's like a traveler diarrhea almost essentially.
But it can be a lot of bloating, terrible diarrhea, tons of fluid loss. That's your lakes, your rivers, your mountain streams, poorly treated water, even swimming pools, because it can be spread through fecal contamination. So,
gross stuff. All right, so now we talked about all the things on some of the parasites and how to get them and how to treat them. Now let's talk about what could be some of the symptoms of parasites. Well, they're vague. They're very vague. And sometimes they can be chronic. So some of a few, like Tim said, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, IBS, abdominal pain, excess gas, reflux, nausea, which sounds like 94% of the American population.
It sounds like IBS.
It sounds like almost everybody that lives the standard American diet.
Those are your main digestive symptoms, which think about those. Bloating, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, gas, reflux, nausea. That can be GERD. That can be IBS. That could be any.
And this is the exact point when I say, and be an advocate for yourself. If a provider throws on an IBS diagnosis for you, that is just such a cop out saying, well, yeah, you have gut dysbiosis. You're either pooping or you're backed up, and I'm going to give you an IBS. Well, duh. It's like, why do you have IBS? Remember, there's always a root cause.
Why do I have an irritable bowel syndrome?
So do I have leaky gut? Am I having a toxin, an exposure, an infection, SIBO, parasites,
reacting to foods,
mold? Food allergy, sensitivity. Like there's so many things in that bucket. So please, for the love of God, if you have IBS, and I'm using quotation marks because it falls into that category where it's a big umbrella, basically your doctor doesn't know why you have IBS, but but they know that those are the symptoms, so there's your label. And then there's some bentyl or whatever medication you get. Find the root cause.
Well, Linzess, I think that's another big one for
Yeah.
IBS
Yeah.
now.
It just drives me nuts. Get to the cause. But anyway, so those are the main symptoms that we hear of our
Digestive,
patients. Yeah, digestive. So those are the ones that they're saying. Of course, we'll get into the lab work, which shows clinically, but those usually when someone presents to us, it could be that. It could also be skin issues, difficulty sleeping, night terrors, waking up, which we'll get into what that looks like for kiddos, but those are usually the main adult ones.
Yeah, if you're mentioning skin issues, I mean, that's your eczemas, your rashes, hives, itching, rosacea. I mean, again, whenever someone comes into me and they have this skin condition in the ER, they tell me that's eczema. And I think to myself, like, okay, that is eczema.
Right.
But what's the underlying cause?
Right.
What's leading to that eczema? Of course, you know, parasites isn't what I'm always jumping to, but it's certainly on the differential. But skin is food related, right? Like what shows up on your skin is usually a reflection of what's going on in your gut.
Exactly. In functional medicine, it's either addressed in the gut or it's coming from an outside environment. Laundry detergent, irritant, something that you're chronically getting exposed to, or what you're putting inside of your body. So those are the two absolute, almost guarantee if you're having eczema, rash, hives, something going on. Those are your two factors.
You did mention some of the neurologic symptoms, you know, through inflammation, immune activation, toxin production. This can affect sort of like brain fogs, anxiety, irritability, difficulty sleeping. Again, what does that sound like? Okay, every hormone deficiency we talked about, right?
Could be
so it's like
perimenopause.
none of these things just tell you one, but you have to have a good broad differential. If you listen to this podcast, we're doing episode 39 right now. If you start back at number 1 and listen here, you're going to have a great differential for all of these symptoms from head to toe.
And for people who are not medical, when Tim says differential, that just means like, what are your possibilities that could this patient have wrong with them? And you got to check those boxes off.
Exactly.
So those are the things. Another thing that parasites can lead you to is sugar cravings. Once again, isn't that like 99% of Americans? Parasites can feed on sugar and carbohydrates, and many people with parasites will report, I have intense sugar cravings. They can never get that fixed. They have nighttime hunger. They have difficulty losing weight. There's waking up in the middle of the night. Those are all things that can point to potential parasites. Notice I said potential. It's not, once again,
it's not guaranteed.
It could be glucose regulation, cortisol issues, you know, so many different things.
And then you mentioned, and we will talk about some labs later, but of course these parasites living in you do lead to nutrient deficiencies, such as iron, ferritin, B12, magnesium, zinc, amongst others. And this can lead to some of the same things: fatigue, brain fog, poor immunity, hair loss. So now it's like, oh, is hair loss related to a nutrient deficiency? Is it related to a thyroid disorder? Is it my adrenal axis? Is it my hormones?
Or you do have blood-sucking parasites.
Exactly. So again, it's all interconnected. Remember, the body is one. They all communicate. Your body doesn't say, sorry, that's a heart problem. Go talk to the heart guy.
Yeah.
You know, like we do in medicine. So
Right.
very interesting. But
okay, so let's talk briefly on parasites in children, because children are probably the most vulnerable. They are the most vulnerable, you know, population. Why? Well, if you guys have kids, you know how gross those kids are. They are gross. I mean, I'm pretty sure every single time I go outside, we live on a farm, so obviously my kids have to have parasite cleanses. We do parasite cleanses or worm our goats and our horses and our chickens, but I don't do my kids. I don't think so. Especially when my kids are putting things in their mouth like dirt and, I don't know, potential chicken turds. But those are the things that they are so at risk for that age group, because they have daycare and playgrounds and pets in incredibly poor hand hygiene. You're like, my kid is not like, Mom, I need to wash my hands. So those are the reasons that they're at great risk. Now, of course, one of the most common parasites or worms in kids is pinworms, but these are very easily caught or diagnosed by Western medicine because they're physically seen. And of course, the symptoms are very prominent.
The textbooks teach us to like put a piece of like tape on the butt, and you pull it off and you see the little pinworms.
Because they're active at night.
Maybe TMI, maybe not. In college, I had pinworms.
Did you really?
My butthole itched so bad. Oh my God. It was like you could, like, I remember having jeans on at work and like not even caring that I was like scratching my butt to like it almost bled. It was awful.
I remember a case in the ER. I mean, they're very common. So by the time like you're used to them, no problem. And usually like kiddos, you know, the parents will go through this maybe at least once in their lifetime with their kids. But we were in the ER and I had a parent that was like coming because the child was just like not sleeping very well, just digging so bad at their butt. And he didn't see the worm. And did that, dad, because she actually had one in the emergency room after about an hour, an hour of being there. That dude came out like he was about to exercise his child, screaming, hitting his hand, things are moving. And I was like, oh, that's just a pinworm. You're fine. But it can be scary for a lot of people. Yeah, especially for first-time patients where you think your child's coming alive and you got worms in them. And
we need a priest.
Yeah.
But no.
But anyway, it's very common.
And the interesting point here, because some of the things you mentioned, restless sleep, irritability, bedwetting, stomach pain, these can get labeled as behavioral issues,
For
right?
sure.
And then all of a sudden that's going to lead to maybe an unnecessary ADHD diagnosis, which we talked about back in episode 32. You should definitely listen to that.
There you go.
But anyway, the point is, again, these can manifest in different ways. Again, if you're like, why is my kid having these symptoms? Why is this new? What's this behavior change that just happened? This is on the differential.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the reason that they have trouble sleeping, which I will also get into, is parasites follow a circadian rhythm and they're more active at night because they respond better to melatonin. So they're more active when melatonin is there, which, like I said, I'll talk about. But those are clinical signs. I will probably say this again in the podcast. If you have a kiddo that should not be wetting the bed, and I'm not talking like a 1 or 2 year old, I mean like potty trained, should not be wetting the bed. If they're wetting the bed, teeth grinding, bags under their eyes, difficulty sleeping, those are very clinical signs that this is likely a parasite issue because of everything that we just said. They actually have their own circadian rhythm. They have their own, which is opposite to ours. They have their own brain and life and detoxification properties with their own parasites in general, so they can make you feel like crap, give you symptoms, and make your kid look kind of crazy when they're not. They just have parasites.
Oh, the kids are crazy. But...
Our kids are crazy, for sure.
Okay,
all kids are.
So why does conventional testing often miss parasites?
Well, like we said, number one, try asking a Western medicine doctor if they know about parasites other than the ones that are, like we said, visible to the naked eye.
I don't remember learning about pinworms or maybe tapeworms in med school. I mean, maybe those two.
That's about it. But also,
not to say I didn't learn a little bit more, but we certainly didn't spend a lot of time on it.
And it's definitely not an emergency usually. So that's probably why. But parasites are, notoriously difficult to find, to detect, to treat. It's just not on usually our differential of potential issues with the patient.
Yeah. So, and one thing people might fall back on is, almost everyone's aware of stool testing in the emergency department. Let's say you're having really bad diarrhea, blood in your stools, or you think you might have a parasite. You can order different stool tests. You can specifically look for some of them through PCR and DNA, such as like the Clostridium, Giardia, what's the bad one? C. diff. Those kinds of things can be tested through PCR and it's a little easier to amplify. But typical ones where you're just looking for eggs being shed, it doesn't shed all the time. So even when you order an ova and parasites on the stool, it might not be in that stool sample. Yeah. It might not be at a point where the parasite's shedding now.
It might not hit the eggs. There's just so many.
There's so many factors that go into it.
Which is why you can never go off of a single diagnostic testing.
I'm going to wait till later for another section to share another story, but
don't forget it.
Okay.
It's very hard to find.
Yeah.
So that's why we look at labs. We look at the entire picture of the story. We look at maybe their environmental exposures, which, take a hit or miss on that because, like I said, everybody is going to be exposed to these parasites.
Agreed.
So, all right. So how does it impact us?
Yeah, let's dive into a little bit of physiology. I feel like, I always love to get into physiology in these podcasts. I feel like this is probably one of our least physiologic episodes, but let's take a little moment. Let's jump in.
We could really take a deep dive, but I think this will just scratch the surface enough.
Yeah, and I think it will be enough for not only us, but the listeners too.
For sure. Well, parasites don't just sit there and do nothing. Obviously, they have an agenda too. They're alive little boogers in there, and they take residence in our body, and they interact with multiple systems. They, especially the immune system, the gut lining microbiome, but they basically survive off of you. Remember, imagine it like a leech. They are actually living because they are living on us or off of us.
Yeah. So in the immune system, we have to remember the body does its job and recognizes parasites as a foreign invader. So the immune system says, oh boy, we need to get active. We need to do something about this, particularly your eosinophils, your mast cells, and IgE antibodies. These are all part of that immune response to fight parasites. If parasites persist for long periods of time, that immune activation becomes chronic, and then you're activating different parts of the immune system. So that can lead to low-grade inflammatory states, that can upregulate other genes, other inflammatory cascades, and lead to some of the other long-term problems that we talked about.
Like allergies with the chronic inflammation, autoimmune issues, skin issues. That's where you see that chronic response. Like you're not just going out out for a stroll, getting some parasites, and you wake up with eczema. That is like a long-term thing. Your body's going to do everything it can to raise its eosinophils, mast cell activation, like things to try to get rid of that parasite, knowing it's a foreign invader. And then when your body is just not able to do that, and they're like harboring and breeding, because mind you, they're also laying eggs in your body. So gross, I know, but those are the
creating
chronic.
biofilms and making themselves more
and
resistant.
creating those biofilms, which those biofilms are so. Biofilm is basically like, imagine like a protective shield that it surrounds itself with. So your body, like, out of sight, out of mind. It has a way. Mold does the same thing. It has a way of blocking itself to your body to not be as recognizable. But your body still kind of understands.
It's like it knows it's there, but it just can't really do much.
Yeah, it can't really
with
do much because, which is why you have to have binders and all these other things to, excrete, which we'll get into. But nonetheless, if you're having some of these chronic symptoms, they've been brewing for a long time and your body's just tapped out and it's trying to excrete, and it's so chronically inflamed.
The second major defect, so we were just talking about the immune system. The second major effect would be to the gut barrier. So one thing that we have to remember, the intestinal lining is really only one cell layer thick,
and
right?
to give you an idea on how thick that is, that's as thin as a piece of tissue paper. Wrap that around your head. That is so thin.
It's incredibly thin.
The size of your intestinal lining.
And that's what is designed. That's what carefully regulates what's inside your intestines from what goes to the bloodstream. And many parasites will attach directly to that lining, and they can actually burrow into it and create defects. So this will actually like irritate, damage, separate the cells, leads to a physical space where now things can enter the bloodstream that shouldn't. And we've talked about that many times. As those junctions loosen, as things get in the bloodstream, again, the body recognizes foreign invaders. You start that reaction process. And that's where we've also talked about molecular mimicry, where things may look like different tissues in your body. As you create an antibody response to it, yes, it not only creates that foreign invader, but creates your own body cells too. So
no good. You want your leaky or your junctions to be just tight enough to do its job. Allow the things to pass that should, keep out the ones that should not be outside of that GI tract.
So immune system, gut wall. Another issue is going to be your toxic byproducts, right? So like you mentioned, parasites are living organisms and they have their own metabolism, their own life cycle, et cetera. And as they feed and as they reproduce.
Yeah, they reproduce inside of you. Wrap that around your head. So gross.
It is gross. They produce their own metabolic waste products, similar to how bacteria produce toxins. And those metabolic waste products have effects on the body. They tax our own body's detox systems, especially the liver, right? Our liver's there. It's working on conjugation. It's trying to get fat-soluble toxins to be water-soluble so we can excrete them from the body. And then all of a sudden, it's like, now I got to deal with all the parasites, metabolic products too? Jeez, oh,
right.
Pete's.
It's like they're living in you, breeding in you, pooping in you, and then your body has to clean all that out. It's like a bunch of like squatters that you don't want inside your body and you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, and your liver's like, I'm trying. I only got so much. Okay, so immune, damage to the gut wall, toxic byproducts, and then finally
your entire gut microbiome, which,
microbiome.
like we said probably 1,000 times at this point, if you don't have a good, diverse, healthy microbiome, your health will be declined. It just will be. It'll be inflamed. The gut is just such a complex ecosystem. It's its own ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, other microbes that normally just live in balance or homeostasis. It's this happy little ecosystem. And when parasites are there and present and causing damage, especially in large numbers, they basically will compete with the nutrients and the environment that they are surrounded in. So it's basically like battling of who can pay rent in this house here. And this, disruption can lead to the bacterial damages, imbalances, yeast and growth.
Right. The bad things can be overgrown, the good things get suppressed. You're right. And then
digestive issues, there goes all the symptoms that we said.
Boy, it's almost like someone should re-listen to episode 13, gut health.
Yeah. And then, exactly. And then imagine all that. So parasites, they can start in the gut. They can ripple towards out to the immune system, metabolism, brain function, and just overall your inflammation levels. And, as we said before, inflammation is at the root cause of almost every single disease process. If your body is living in an inflamed state, it's not if and when you're going to get disease processes. And what disease processes you get is going to be up to your body and your genetics that you reside in.
It's not if, but when.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got you.
Did I say that wrong?
You said it's not if and when.
Whatever.
Yeah. I like your Mia-isms.
He knows when I talk.
Hopefully the listeners are starting to understand that. You just have to know what she's thinking, not necessarily what she's saying sometimes.
It doesn't help that I talk on 2-speed. I'm getting better, but my words will always get flipped when I'm like super excited about a topic, which is every single podcast. So just bear with me.
It is what it is.
Just slow down.
All right, let's talk about diagnosing parasites a little bit. I think people like to go over this.
This one is cool. And this one's for all of our, even our healthcare providers and our patients that their PCPs probably hate because they're always running to them saying, I heard on a podcast with Health Without the System that I have parasites. Can you see my labs? Not necessarily. I mean, look at them and review symptoms, but there are some really cool markers that our body can give us to give us a good idea if parasites may or may not fit the picture. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, well, we can go ahead because the first thing we were going to talk about basically is like a CBC and looking at eosinophils.
Sure.
I think that's probably the first place to catch, but I wanted to mention that just like everything else, you have to take these in context with the whole picture. I just saw a gentleman
never treat just labs ever.
came to us. He did our Just Labs visit. I did a big panel on him. He's a younger man, very healthy. Everything came back great. His eosinophils were a little over 500. And I'm like not jumping to a parasitic infection. He feels great. His brain health's good. He's on top of his game, but I'm just mentioning like, hey, let's keep an eye on this. Let me know if you start to feel like maybe you're gaining weight. Maybe feel like you're off a little bit. Your grades are slipping. I think he was in college, whatever. And I'm going to like look back on my notes and remember that. So again,
your
just
labs.
important to know. And same with you as a person. Oh, okay. My eosinophils were high. Let me keep that in mind.
There could have been something else brewing
Right.
that was
allergic
spike.
reaction. It's seasonal allergy time right now. He also forgot to fast for his labs. So maybe he ate something that triggered some eosinophils. But anyway, point is, just because we say high eosinophils can be a marker of parasites doesn't mean every time it is that. So
yeah. But eosinophils specifically, they're immune cells, and they're basically designed to attack parasitic organisms, which is obviously their job. That's the first and foremost runner-up of the lab that you're going to look at. And they especially look at the parasitic worms, which is, not end all be all, like we said. So eosinophils about 4 to 5%. That's where, like, over that is where you can say, okay, are we going to start to picture that this might be parasites, or the absolute eosinophils that are greater than 300? That would be the lab values. But go ahead.
Agreed. And like you said, I'm definitely thinking the worm category if the eosinophils are up. So that kind of can point you in that direction.
Right. But also what we said, like take some of these as a grain of salt, because an important thing to note is that many protozoa parasites, which are very common, like, the blastocystis or the giardia, those do not elevate the eosinophils like some of the other parasites do. So
Protozoa are your more basic, your older bacteria, single cell organism. Your your worms are now getting into those multicellular parasites. So
one normal lab value does not automatically say, oh, I don't have parasites. Like, you have to look at everything as an entire picture. Number 2 is an elevated IgE. This is another lab that can be elevated sometimes when you have some type of parasitic infection, is the IgE. It is most commonly associated with allergies, parasites, and of course the mast cell activation. The parasites will stimulate a Th2 like immune or histamine response, which increases the IgE activation or production. And usually we'll see patterns like this. So patterns, once again, you follow the labs, trend your labs, recognize patterns, recognize symptoms, elevated IgE without any obvious allergies that you're going through right now, or a high IgE with symptoms like, itching or eczema and things like that.
Yeah, and this is where you start to put things together, right? So, okay, maybe you have high eosinophils and a high IgE. Okay, now I'm moving more towards some sort of infectious parasitic diagnosis versus maybe you have some high IgE, but you already know you have a history of asthma. Maybe you have atopic dermatitis, which kind of goes hand in hand with asthma. So again, it's kind of taking the patient as a whole. But again, this is a good one. IgE is specifically an antibody produced by the immune system in a central role for allergic reactions and defending against specifically parasites. So.
Next one is iron and ferritin abnormalities. Remember, parasites will can actually consume the nutrients that you're also eating, fighting for some of these things, particularly iron. So if they're eating off of your iron, then you can have low ferritin, which is your storage tank, iron deficiencies, and unexplained anemia. These are very common with parasites that are linked to the iron deficiency, which are the hookworms and whipworms and some other ones, but those are the main ones. You guys, it drives me insane. Ferritin is probably my number one lab that makes me irate when a provider says that it's normal. Just today, I had a patient that had a ferritin of 11, and it didn't flag because the lab that she went to doesn't flag it until 10. If you were almost single digits with ferritin, those are the patients that I see that almost cannot get out of bed. Like that, yes, that's your storage tank, but your body knows that something is going on, and you will feel like death. I want to see your ferritin at least 50. If not, then you have a gut issue, absorption issue, autoimmune issue, parasite issue, like something is going on, and you can give yourself iron, but even then you might not be, keeping up with whatever's happening. So please remember, ferritin is an amazing marker on some of these things. And if your ferritin is low, and I'm using quotation marks because if your ferritin is flagging low in a lab result, chances are it's like like your functional medicine provider will probably pass out if it's critically low on a Western medicine test.
Yeah.
Very important.
If it flags low on that, because
You're in
many
trouble.
people are suboptimal, but also the flip side, many people are elevated, and that's a
And
whole
that's a
different
chronic inflammatory issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
So ferritin is an acute phase reactant as well. So.
Yep. All right, so next, FYI, just get that checked. And then next is vitamin B12 deficiency. Once again, the parasites, they kind of fight for some of these absorption issues or patterns, and they can interfere with that B12 absorption in your gut. So then, of course, you can have potential low B12, fatigue, brain fog, neuropathy. If you have low B12, obviously that helps your nerves. So tingling of the hands, feet, losing feeling of your hands, feet, brain fog, all of those things that can stimulate that. And then, of course, you can obviously test for that. So trend your labs.
Yeah, and that one is definitely more associated with tapeworms, sort of those bigger ones that we're more used to in the intestines that can grow to be quite big and suck up quite a bit of nutrients.
Mm-hmm. There could be 1,000 reasons for that too. MTHFR gene mutation, malabsorption of the gut, bariatric surgery, a list goes on and on for reasons why low B12. But once again, recognize patterns, trends, and symptoms.
So we mentioned eosinophils on a CBC, elevated IgE levels, iron and other ferritin abnormalities, a vitamin B12 deficiency, and the next would be elevated liver enzymes. So again, this one, this may be more specific to parasites that might infect the liver or bile ducts. Mm-hmm. That's where you're gonna see elevations in things like the ALT, AST, alkaline phosphatase, and your GGT. But let's also remember that GGT is sort of a surrogate for what's going on with your glutathione. So glutathione is used by the liver when it's trying to detox. So remember how we said a few minutes ago, your liver is constantly detoxing environmental toxins and all different toxins that you're exposed to, including parasitic toxins. So let's say you have a high burden of that, your glutathione is going to drop down real low and your GGT is going to go up high. So it might not just be from the type of parasite that hits your gallbladder or liver. It might just be from the overall work of the liver detoxifying.
Yeah, glutathione is the mother of all antioxidants. It's great for getting free radicals and inflammation down of the body. Very supportive. We love our glutathione.
Yep.
But yeah, okay, next one, inflammation markers. Chronic parasites, infections can stimulate inflammation markers. Obviously, like what we said, ongoing immune activity and low-grade inflammation at baseline. These are going to catch with your high-sensitive CRP, your ferritin, like we talked about. These are just your inflammation markers that you'll trend and make sure that they're
an
not
ESR,
high. No.
and erythrocyte sedimentation rate.
ESR, yep. And once again, the only downfall about some of these markers, like I told you, all the options that ferritin can be, they're not specific. You're not going to have a high sensitivity CRP and it's going to be like, oh, this was an acute stubbed toe. Like, no, it's not that specific. So then you have to use that lab as an entire clinical picture to say, what could this be?
Right.
Were you sick when you had a cold when you got the labs done, or is something else brewing?
Yep, low vitamin D. Some practitioners mention the the association between low vitamin D levels and parasites.
This is another one with like ferritin. Like when I say, oh, I'm not low in my provider said I'm not low in vitamin D. You were 31. You are low in vitamin D. Like we have to get that higher. I don't think it triggers until it's under like 29 on some Western medicine tests. Once again, once you're at that level, no good. You got to get that up. So those are things that help. I mean, with that being low, you're at greater risk for chronic inflammation, malabsorption of the gut, autoimmune issues. There was a direct correlation with increased all-cause mortality with low vitamin D levels in COVID-19. They did a massive study on some of these, and every single person that they tested that died of COVID-19 had low vitamin D. It really helps support your immune system, autoimmune, helps inflammation. Very, very important vitamin. It's actually more of a hormone than a vitamin. But
yeah, I like to call it hormone.
I digress.
Yep. It's involved in so many processes in your body.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about
those are
stool
the basic
testing.
ones. Those aren't all, but that's a darn good start. So yeah, stool testing. We dabbed a little bit in that, but there is stool testing that's often used. We do, like Tim said, the PCR testing. We do a GI map. That's the most common one, or gut zoomer, actually, it's what it's called, that we use Vibrant Wellness for.
Yeah, and that's really good. I mean, you can test parasites, mycotoxins, all kinds of what kind of
heavy
bacteria
metals,
are
microplastics. Like that is such an amazing company for that. But the gut zoomer does basically a map. It's like a 3-day stool map of what's going on. It looks at your species, your diverse population, if you're under or overpopulated in a certain species, if you have a bacterial overgrowth, if you have some of these parasites. It doesn't tell you exactly like you for sure have this, but it leads to patterns and high susceptibility for this. And then you can, of course, put that story together.
And you can also get, I mean, so much other stuff, like
So
you said, in
much.
the gut.
Yes.
There's just a wealth of information there. These are not
Yeah.
super cheap. You guys, if you're interested in any of this, we are providers that offer this. We have a visit at rixahealth.com. You would want to pick the general health and wellness visit and talk to us about some of these things.
Yeah.
Just know it can get a little bit pricey. And a lot of times we'll tell people how much it might be to get this stool testing, but we'll also say, or we can look at some of these other things and we can try just kind of treating it first,
Exactly.
using
It
some
might be treat to
mild
treat.
parasitic cleanses, some supplements, some gut health things. And sometimes that's enough. Like, I'd rather not spend close to $1,000 on testing, and I'd rather spend a lot less money, get some labs and treat it. So anyway, story time. I shit on a paper plate.
Yeah, and put it in the freezer for 3 days.
Yeah. So Mia made me do a gut zoomer test,
You
and
needed it.
I had to go in the bathroom and poop on a paper plate and use some weird freaking plastic spoon and transfer it to something. And I'm in there.
Yeah, here's my story time. So as we all know, Tim's an ER doctor who could basically have his hand deep in a chest giving a cardiac massage on a heart and be completely fine. But if you poop on him, if he sees your poop, if you puke, he's on the floor gagging with you. It's incredible. I don't even understand how this is it, which leads me to the fact that everybody's like, how are you a doctor? And I'm like, because there's nurses that did his glorious, wonderful work. Thank you to all the nurses that didn't, allow my husband to have a single episode on the ER floor and freak out his patients.
I've had so
wild.
many times patients asking me if I'm okay. Like, they'll have a stool impaction. I'm doing something rectal. There's poop, and you'll just hear me
gagging. Yeah.
Anyway.
This story, like, it's me unclogging toilets with the kiddos. Like, it's
Oh, yeah,
never
I can't
him.
do that.
It's me picking up the dog puke.
Yeah,
Because if
no.
I come down, this happened. I don't even know. Oh, all the animals got sick. We had a GI bug.
yeah.
The dog and the cat puked on the floor. Welcome to the Scott family. And he got up before I did. He's walking down the stairs, and I can hear him audibly, like, about to vomit. And I was like, God bless it. I'm going to be picking up dog crap, chicken crap, Tim crap, everything.
Yeah.
It's just a disaster.
Anyway, though, so the test is doable. If
Yeah.
I can do it, anyone can do it.
1,000%. If you can poop on a paper plate and put it in your freezer for 3 days, anybody can do it. Just maybe not put it with your food.
Okay. So,
your
but
family
again,
will get worse.
and also, as Mia said, number one, it might not tell you exactly some of the pathogens. It might just give you more, hey, it could be this, or we're leaning towards this. But it does give you some exact things. Don't get me wrong. It's a very good test. But also remember, it can miss things too. Like we said, parasites shed intermittently, meaning they may release eggs or DNA at certain times, but not others. And if it happens to be stool you collect, or it's, I didn't empty my gut on a plate and
Right.
we didn't send it to a lab, like
Yeah.
it was a piece of a turd. So, you get what you get.
Yeah, and I really do like my gut zoomer. Just another little story here. I will definitely recommend this for patients that have been to every single provider before, or autoimmune issue, bunch of complex symptoms. Nothing's really adding up. I have multiple diagnoses that I could possibly weigh out, but those are the patients that I just need. A quick story time. I had a really good friend of mine that she has been through the ringer. She's been to PCP, gut, GI, all these things. Cannot figure out why she's so bloated. She's tried 1,000 things, 1,000 different supplements. She's somebody who's already spent so much time and money on supplements. I'm like, listen, I know that this is going to be, $500+ We should do it. And turns out we were able to fix immediately. She had severe pancreatic insufficiency. She needed a lot of support that we could immediately say, we know what this is, and dive in. So it does make a difference for some patients that I do recommend. I have another autoimmune patient who I cannot believe how complex that she is. We're getting a gut zoomer because she doesn't have the money to waste anymore, because she's been to every single provider in the county. So those are the reasons that we do it. Or honestly, if you just want to see your gut
sometimes you
bacteria,
just want to know.
It's a fabulous test.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about some other patterns that we should watch or at least pay attention to. You can see indirect clues when it comes to parasitic infection. So histamine reactions, nutrient deficiencies, like we said, you don't always have to test the exact product in the stool. So high histamine. Like we said, parasites can stimulate a histamine response. That's IgE mediated. Impossible symptoms: itching, hives, sinus symptoms, and food reactions. When I eat a certain thing, this happens. It's not always a food sensitivity. Sometimes it's the parasite reacting.
And sometimes that can also be mold. Itching, hives,
Agreed.
sinus issues, and a histamine response. You're also thinking mold. Mold will obviously do a podcast on mold, but it'll wreak havoc on your cells and your immune system.
Agreed. Zinc deficiencies. So parasites can also contribute to zinc depletion, and symptoms of low zinc can be like just many other things, but weakened immunity, hair loss, slow wound healing, altered taste, all of these things. So just another thought there. When you're looking for patterns, I mean, in general, you have to understand parasites are rarely diagnosed from a single lab value, a single stool test, or, someone coming in, you're like, yep, you got parasites.
Yeah.
So you just have to look for some of these patterns and
Yeah.
some of these other
And
cues.
real quick pattern here, just as an idea of a pattern, high eosinophils, elevated IgE, low ferritin, digestive issues. That is a clinical picture of you're obviously something's going on in
Something's
the
going
gut.
on, right?
Yep. So remember, elevated eosinophils, activating the immune system, monitoring. That's their specific job to work on parasitic infections or an acute spike in something that's inflammatory. So those are the things that we already talked about, the IgE with the inflammation, with the immune response. All of those things go together. Low ferritin, gut issue. Obviously, it's either an absorption issue, somebody's eating your storage tanks, or malabsorption issue.
Right. And sort of like you mentioned, here's another pattern. Imagine you've got these chronic gut symptoms. Maybe you've had completely normal conventional labs and you've gone through the ringer of labs. Someone needs to know, whether it's you bringing it up to someone or a provider, someone needs to say, hey, maybe we need to actually spend the money and do that stool test like you mentioned before. Maybe we need that PCR-based analysis to see if there's something in your stools.
Just to note really quick, because it's just crossed my mind that I don't think that a lot of people think of, this is not diagnosed in a colonoscopy, FYI. Like the obvious ones, your tapeworm, your worms that are physical that you could probably get out and put on a hook and go fishing with. Those are the ones that are going to be potentially caught. But the ones that we're talking about mostly that go undiagnosed like clinically forever are the ones that we cannot see very well to the naked eye, or they're embedded in areas that we're just not going to catch like this. They're living in the stool, inside the walls, things that we're not going to catch even with the scoping of the camera.
Agreed.
All right.
I don't know. Do we have anything else for that
I
section?
don't think so. Well, just, key takeaways there. Like I said, they're identified through a combination of things: clinical symptoms, monitoring patterns across your own trends. Remember, your trends are different than somebody else's. You have to really start being an advocate for yourself. You will hear me say this 1,000 times on this podcast. If you do not advocate for yourself, trust me when I tell you that there's going to be no greater advocate than yourself, especially if you're in the Western medicine world, going to a Western medicine doctor. If you are not getting answers, these are some of the things that you can do. Pull up your labs, trend your own labs, monitor your symptoms, and rule out your own differential of what could be potentially going on with your body. Looking at your entire clinical picture. You are with yourself for the rest of your life. You should get to know your body. You should get to know your labs, get them twice a year, get a good panel, and making sure that you are very in tune with your body. So when something goes wrong or something ain't right, you can find answers and help your doctor. And friendly reminder, if you have a doctor who is so close-minded to this and they don't believe in this or it's woo-woo medicine, find another doctor. If your doctor doesn't know about this, that's okay. But they should tell you, listen, this isn't my specialty. Let me try to find you someone who might, or that's outside of my scope. I think that this is a good thing to look into, but this isn't me. Those are the doctors that are okay. But a doctor that says, nope, that's not even a thing, get a new one.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some functional medicine approaches to treating parasites. Like we said before, it's rarely one test that diagnoses parasites. It's also very rarely one treatment. You're hardly ever going to be successful by taking one pill, even one prescription pill, such as albendazole, mebendazole,
especially if you're very problematic. And I just want to touch on that with Tim, because like I said, our entire family, we're not symptomatic. We are not riddled with parasites. The treatment that we are about to talk about for patients, these are patients that are very symptomatic, that are visually, low ferritin, gut issues, major dysbiosis, where I know like they likely have parasites. Then we have to go through a protocol to make sure that we're excreting those regularly. If you feel like you're asymptomatic, but you just want to do a normal parasite cleanse, you don't have to get into the binders and other these things like that we're going to talk to that are that heavy. They can also support your body, but we're talking about some heavy duty support here.
Yeah. So we're basically going to go through sort of like a 5-phase approach for functional medicine treating parasites. And again, there is so much variability, not just within for the overall 5 phases, but within each phase. So just know, guys, we are not trying to lay out this is how you treat it every single time. We're just trying to kind of give you the idea of how one might approach it, and it would vary so much person to person. So first one is going to be support digestion. Everything starts with the gut. Parasites thrive in poor digestive environments. We have to strengthen the gut. First, you might entertain some ideas like digestive enzymes, stomach acid support. A lot of times people don't realize even acid reflux, GERD symptoms are actually from low stomach acid. Low stomach acid is going to lead to that. SIBO, parasite overgrowth, bad intestinal bacteria. So you're thinking stomach acid support, digestive enzymes, bile salts, and bile support, and then microbiome repair. This is a good time. We're actually going to do a whole podcast on this, so I'm not going to go into it crazy today, but the 5 R's of gut health.
Yeah.
We sort of mentioned it in our gut health episode, but remove, replace, re-inoculate, repair, and rebalance. So this 5R framework, this is, a very well known throughout functional medicine. There's so many ways you can do it, but you remove the bad stuff. So you got to get rid of the parasites, your small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, other bad bacteria. You replace what digestion needs, and that's kind of when we were talking about some enzymes, some stomach acid support, some bile support. You got to re-inoculate the good bacteria. That's going to be your prebiotics, your probiotics.
A diverse population of new species.
Right, very good diverse population. You got to repair the gut lining. That's when you're getting into some of your aloes, your zinc carnosine,
If
L-glutamine.
it's inflamed, pissed off, leaky gut, those types of
The
things.
kinds of things that say, calm down, buddy, calm down.
Yeah,
and then you have to rebalance the lifestyle factors. So that's where it's mind, body, spiritual, the whole approach. It all adds up. Your adrenal axis, your stress levels, your cortisol. It's all one. So anyway, that's the 5 R's.
Very rarely will parasites thrive in a good environment. So that's usually where, like, if you have poor gut health, then parasites are going to reside even better for them. So I'm not to say that if you're healthy and you don't have gut issues that you're forbidden and safe from parasites. No, but they really thrive in poor GI environments.
Agreed. All right.
So
step
number
2 or phase 2.
Yep. Anti-parasitic herbs, all the herbs that we talked about, many herbs have a very strong anti-parasitic effect.
Like more than you would ever think. Like you're going to talk about it, but oregano oil, for example, like I never understood. I didn't know how powerful that is.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. They would do like petri dishes of bacterial, parasites, mold, fungus, and it would like eradicate the entire dish of a drop of oregano oil. Just so very powerful. Now, granted, that's outside of the body, a little different, controlled science there, but very, very powerful. Wormwood, black walnut, clove, oregano, garlic, berberine, neem oil. Those are all like, those will really help with the parasites.
Agreed. They've been used for centuries. Many functional medicine protocols will use these and they'll rotate. You might not do all 8 that Mia just said at one time. Might be 2 or 3, for 2 or 3 weeks. Again, it depends on the severity, depends on what you're targeting. But rotation is key because things will develop resistance.
Yeah. Remember food as medicine. And once in a while, like especially sometimes medication is needed, especially if you're riddled, you're super symptomatic. Now, still, I do think that the blend of herbs are very, very beneficial. I think it can definitely do its job because they really, truly are so potent, especially when you use them in such a diverse species. But sometimes prescriptions are needed. That goes into the ivermectin, the albendazole, like those things that are just, medication grade or prescription grade.
Right. And then phase 3 would be prescription medications if needed. Sometimes it's needed, right? Yeah. That's the whole point. I mean, we are big advocates of health without the system. But with that being said, one thing we think that the healthcare system does really well is acute care, sick care. There are some really good prescription medications out there. Albendazole, mebendazole, I can't say this one. Nitazoxanide is one. I've never written for that one. I have written for the other one.
Oh, yeah. Ivermectin is super safe and common.
Well, I didn't get to that yet.
Oh,
I was just getting to that. I was going to say, but the one I really love is ivermectin.
IVM.
And again, we are going to do an entire podcast episode on ivermectin, so I'm not going to get crazy with it
we'll probably
today.
Get censored at that point.
But let's just talk about it for a moment real quick. We already said this was going to be a longer episode. I think we're at like 53 minutes. You guys are just going to have to bear with us. Ivermectin, okay, this works by binding to glutamate-gated chloride channels in parasites, which essentially paralyzes the parasite's nervous system. Humans, we don't have those same channels, so essentially we can take ivermectin without any serious physiologic disturbance in what we do for the most part. The parasite loses its normal nerve signaling, it becomes immobilized, and the body can finally clear it. Or maybe it stops producing its biofilm, and the body can finally break it down and clear it. Lots of different mechanisms. It's usually paired with other things depending on what you're going for, but it's a really cool drug. It's very safe and it's effective. It's been used for a long time. From a safety perspective, ivermectin has been used globally for decades to treat all kinds of different fungal infections, certain bacterial and certain parasites, and it's estimated that billions of doses have been administered worldwide.
Oh, I bet.
As a matter of fact, ivermectin won the Nobel Prize in Physiology for how freaking amazing of a drug it is. And I don't want to get censored, but a certain virus that went around the world in 2020 responded very well to ivermectin treatment. However, in the United States, it was poo-pooed. And if you raised your hand and said, excuse me, sir, what about ivermectin?
Yeah, excuse me, we found a very good treatment that's not only safe and effective.
Azithromycin, zinc, ivermectin, Decadron altogether was absolutely eradicating the C word, but I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah. It drives me nuts.
Okay,
Drives
not gonna say it.
me.
You lost your medical license if you
could.
tried to say that.
You would still get censored. Sometimes even today, the pharmacist can call you and ask you what that indication for.
The Ohio Board of Pharmacy was taking
Yep.
away people's medical licenses if you
for
were
IBM,
prescribing ivermectin.
And you can give this to
during-
an infant.
Yeah.
So freaking safe. Not
crazy.
only that, which I'm sure Tim will get into, it's anti-inflammatory, anti-viral, and there is studies out there that it's anti-cancer.
and
which
that
I
also
totally
has to
believe.
do
Yeah.
with some of that biofilm and other things we talked about. But
Very awesome.
agreed.
Very
And
awesome.
here's the other caveat. It's simple in its mechanism. It's inexpensive. It's widely studied, and it's incredibly effective. So anyway, I'm a fan of ivermectin.
Very quick, and I won't say the word, but a quick study that went out where there was a parasitic infection that broke out into a nursing home during the C time, and they treated the entire nursing home with IVM.
It was in Italy. There was approximately 80 patients, and there was a breakout of, I forget, it was some parasitic infection, something.
And every single person,
And
whatever,
all got
it just
ivermectin.
prophylactic because you didn't care. You just treated everybody because that's how safe IVM is. Not a single person, not only, I don't think even contracted the C word, but nobody got sick and died.
I can't remember if
was
nobody
insane.
contracted, but of all 88 participants,
and
zero
we're talking a nursing
zero
home, you guys.
people
A
died
nursing home.
of C
Yep.
word. Yeah. And this
that's
is
just
one
one
study.
study.
There
One.
are other
Yeah.
studies out there that show this, and I mean it's mind blowing.
I know.
We can't. get into this
I
one.
know we could absolutely dive into that, but welcome to the world of Western medicine, where we will for sure get censored for that.
Yeah.
Just know that
It's
just not
but
what you
yet
think it
the
was,
same
man.
people who censor you were the ones saying, "Oh, trust the science and get the V word."
Yeah.
But anyway.
yeah.
All right. So
get us started on that.
support
Get my blood
digestion,
pressure
phase
up.
1. Phase 2, anti-parasitic herbs. Phase 3, prescription medications if needed. Phase 4, detox support. Yeah, that's your specialty.
Yeah, when parasites die, they release these inflammatory and toxic debris, which basically can get reabsorbed into the system and bloodstream, and we can actually feel this die-off reaction. This is also called a Hersheimer's reaction. Very common for patients who really have a poor time detoxifying. We use B minerals in our practice, and they have the fulvic acid in it for our patients that need extracellular support. And if I give that to a patient that I feel like needs extracellular support, this is something that I'm educating them with, because it will really help your body's detoxifying properties and kill off some of these bad things that are living in your body. And when that happens, we basically feel their cellular death or their die off, and it can make us feel like cold, flu, headaches, fatigue, nausea. It doesn't last very long, but some people
so the good
feel-
news, it's really easy to identify, right? Some muscle aches, some
Right.
fatigue,
Yeah.
a little
And
nausea.
some patients will feel like, man, I'm not tolerating this. Or I had one patient like, man, I'm having a reaction or an allergy to this fulvic acid. It's like, no, actually, I hate to say that's a good thing, but ride through that, because that's just even better confidence that your body's needing
Yeah,
this.
and the treatment's just symptomatic support, hydration.
For sure.
Support your liver, get some glutathione.
Yeah, you can do
right.
binders to
Right.
get that out. Binders basically.
So some people, and that was kind of the next thing to talk about with this when you're treating parasitic infections is binders, because I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Do I need to take a binder? And the question is maybe.
Well,
I don't know, yes, no,
how bad do
possibly.
we think this is?
Right. If you think you are riddled with parasites, it's probably a good idea, because you are going to feel like crap as you kill them off. But does it have to be done? No. They basically can help during a die-off reaction, because they bind to these different toxins and metabolic wastes in the gut and help them carry out of the body in the stool instead of being reabsorbed through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream. So common examples of binders are activated charcoal, the bentonite clay, chlorella, and modified citrus pectin. Those are got to be the most common.
Yeah.
And you can actually get those. Again, our favorite brand, Cotage, they have a really good binder that has, I think, 3 of those different things in it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Once again, it's all in the patient. If I have an entire family that has, kiddos in it that want to be treated too, am I giving everybody a binder? No. Unless they if I really think that they need it, if they're symptomatic, if their labs are showing it, and I think that there's, a parasitic infection, yeah, sure, I'm going to give their body extra support. But once again, you're treating the patient in front of you in labs, not necessarily just, everybody gets the same protocol. It's not that easy. And then
Agreed.
of course, after
Phase
that,
5.
phase 5, restore it. You got to restore everything
got to
that
fix
you
the
just
gut.
did.
Yep. So we mentioned the 5 R's a minute ago of overall gut health. This is just phase 5 of parasite cleansing. So restore the gut sort of blends a lot of the 5 R's of gut health at once. But yes, you gotta re-inoculate. You got to get the probiotics, the prebiotics, fermented foods. Again, please remember, food is medicine. The good bacteria feed off of these fermented foods. Gut lining repair. I mentioned this a minute ago. L-glutamine, zinc carnosine, collagen or bone broth. People don't realize how good for your gut lining collagen and or bone broth is. It's actually very anti-inflammatory.
And for
It
some
helps with those
patients
junctions.
that can tolerate the bovine colostrum, that's another really good
Agreed.
one too.
Omega-3 fatty acids, having a good omega-3. You want to avoid stock ones off the shelves. Most of them are rancid by the time they get there. Get a good trusted brand. We've used Nordic Naturals in the past. I now am really kind of into this brand, Stonehenge Health. I like them.
Jigsaw is another really good
Jigsaw
one.
was one, yeah.
Jigsaw
you're right.
is my
Jigsaw was
favorite,
the
one of my favorites. They're a little bit expensive, but you get what you pay for. Be careful with your cod liver oils and your Alaskan oils. That's one of the ones that can be oxidized and flipped into basically a omega-6 versus omega-3. It can be rancid by the time it gets to you. So if you're eating or consuming a fish oil, please just be careful of sourcing. That's a supplement that gets
You
really
want a good,
tricky
well-rated brand
you
that
don't
does
want a
third-party
nasty,
testing,
oxidized-
CGMP certified.
No way.
Anyway, vitamins A and D are also good for gut lining repair.
Ginger,
and
turmeric.
ginger,
those are really
turmeric,
good ones.
absolutely.
Yep.
And then when that kind of goes in the anti-inflammatory nutrition, food is medicine, ginger, turmeric.
Right. And I know that this sounds like so much, but remember, once again, we have to eat. So why not we eat our medicine? Why don't we incorporate berberine and oregano and fish and ginger and turmeric and all these different spices? Like, they're on the planet for a reason. They can work very well in our diet, and food is medicine. You don't have to, get sick and get stuck into the system. You can eat every single day your medicine.
All right, stick with us, people. We're almost there. So let's get into sort of seasonal parasite cleanses and the full moon theory. We kind of have already mentioned it. There's not a ton of science with this, so let's just kind of run through it real quick.
Yeah, so basically, so you're about to do a parasite cleanse. If we could pick the absolute perfect time, why? Or when would that be? And one concept that you'll hear very often in functional and Chinese medicine and even neuropathic medicine is that, you want to do this seasonally, and then seasonally also with the full moon, and hear me out on this. So you might have some providers that say maybe just once or twice a year. Personally, we do just a quick, nice, mild cleanse every season change with a full moon cycle. And this might sound a little bit strange at first. I get it, but let's break
I think
into
we're probably more like twice a year. When you say season change, I think it's like coming out of winter and then usually heading back into winter.
Do Tim and I twice a year. I do the kiddos. I do them,
you give
I
them
do
a
them
bunch of
seasonal
stuff all the
because
time,
they're gross. They're out on the
Yeah.
farm barefoot, licking their feet and hands. They're gross. Like, if you've met my kids, they're pure farm hillbillies out there. Like, I have to give them cleanses, just like I do with my animals, So anyway, this, like I said, many traditional medical systems believe in that periodic detoxifying thing, which we do. Basically, things can accumulate over time, and you want to make sure that you're catching that. Different bacteria grow in different seasons, just things of that nature. So let's just jump down to the actual moon theory.
Okay.
So this full moon theory is that, this has been discussed with like Dr. Charlie Fagenholtz, like I said before. And the idea of this is to do this around the cycle. So they're most active around the moon cycle. They have their own cycle.
Full moon is like peak activity.
Yeah, where they cycle. So then technically you want to catch this a couple days before and a couple days after that full
Just in
moon.
case they're a little off, just like a woman on the period. Sometimes,
you want to catch that
before,
full,
like
7-ish days. And there's no set in stone.
I got to give you 15 days, to adjust for you. So then I get 15 days of the month where I don't have to worry about it.
Sane. Yeah, exactly. So theory 1, let's talk about melatonin and the parasite activity. This one's actually decently interesting, and I fully believe in this one as well. But they are influenced by the melatonin levels, these parasites, which was why that many parasites follow their own circadian rhythm with this, and they respond to their host hormone signals. Melatonin acts as a biological timing signal, which tells organisms basically when it's daytime or nighttime. It just regulates your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, they're not like waking up, opening the curtains, and looking out the window.
Right.
So melatonin is like a communicator.
Right, exactly. So parasites have been evolved to use this signal to coordinate their behavior with their host's own physiology. You guys, these are very smart little creatures, And when melatonin rises significantly during the night, this is where parasites can use that signal, and they can increase their migration, feeding, reproduction, egg laying. They have their own circadian cycle. So that's why you can also have the disruption in sleep patterns, waking up, bedwetting. They can affect the bladder. very, very interesting on how they do this. So like I said, itching, restlessness, intentional or intestinal movement during nighttime wakenings, all of these things that can correlate with that.
Right. And so that's sort of like
Where
their
the symptoms come
that's
from.
like their daily cycle, right? And what we're going to talk about for a moment too is how they also have like these cyclical reproductive patterns, not just the daily life cycle. So basically, parasites, like many other organisms in nature, they can respond to light cycles, circadian rhythms, and hormonal shifts. So during the full moon, that might be their peak reproductive cycle when they lay the most eggs. So the theory behind treating around the full moon is that you start whatever you're going to do, all the different things a few days, 3 to 5 days before the full moon, leading up. You treat leading up through the full moon and 3 to 5 days after it. And the goal is to sort of catch it, even if it's a little bit off, and get maximum treatment. You don't have to do that, but some people think it's beneficial. And we kind of think, why not? Why not try to maximize it?
Yeah. All right. So when we take a step back and look at the big picture, parasites are really just, one piece of the overall health puzzle. Once again, you're just looking at the entire picture and the labs and the patient's symptoms, all the things. But they are far more common than what we give them credit for. And they can influence just so much of the body, different systems, digestion, like we said, nutrient absorption, immune system, balance, mood, energy, all the things that we have to potentially put that diagnosis on the table to make sure that we're, looking at everything. But, the goal, like we said in the beginning, it's not to create fear mongering or any, like fear
Like,
against
oh my God, you're going to
everybody.
die of
Yeah,
parasite
like everybody
infections.
has parasites. It's
Right.
just being aware of something that we might not even have known existed to be a potential diagnosis for patients or for people struggling. So
Yeah, I was going to say the key takeaway, in my opinion, is being able to identify some of these symptoms, link the patterns, put the whole picture together. Think lab work, think gut health, think your overall environment in the body. Do you live on a farm? Are you exposed to a bunch of animals? Do you get foods shipped all over the world? Most of us do. There's many different areas you may be exposed to parasites, and it's just another thing you need to think about.
yeah. And also making sure that your detoxifying properties are open. I mean, this is all the stuff that we talk about on our podcast all the time. Making sure that you are, supporting your immune system, eating well, eating some of these herbs and spices. It just really makes a difference to look at the body as a whole, lifestyle change, making sure that we can do what we can to support the body in its entirety. And, ultimately, health isn't just about removing something harmful. It's, like I said, doing these lifestyle changes to make sure that we don't have to worry about some of these things long term.
Agreed. So if this episode sparked some curiosity for you, if you recognize some symptoms we talked about, or maybe you just want to better understand your gut health, this is exactly why these conversations matter. Maybe you can mention it to a friend. If you feel comfortable talking it to your primary care provider, go ahead. Tell your doctor to listen to this episode, your friend to listen to this episode, or come see us at rixahealth.com.
Yep.
Happy to take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, this podcast is just to know about more information about your body, how it works, how we can support it, and to sometimes rule out symptoms that your PCP might be missing and, misdiagnosing or just, dismissing altogether. So the more we know about our body and the potential pathogens that can impact it, the more that we can do to support our body and the environment that we live in. So.
Agreed. Please like, follow, share, and comment. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast, and also check us out at rixahealth.com.
Yep, and we have our supplement line, like we say every episode. It's the shop tab, so like, share, follow, and send us to anybody that you feel like it could impact or somebody that you want to gross out. So
Thank you.
Till next time, guys.
This podcast is for education and conversation, not medical advice. It's not a replacement for personalized care, diagnosis, or treatment. Always talk with your own healthcare provider before making changes to your health, medications, or lifestyle. Our goal is to give you better questions, better understanding of disease, and more ownership of your health. Knowledge is power. Tune in every week. We're going to drop some knowledge on you. The goal is for you to become so powerful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.